So Hassan will be more than happy to share it there, and from there you can ask your questions. Couple of things that I think you please keep in mind: if you don't understand anything, please make sure to write a question in the Discord, and Hassan will be forwarding it to me, and I will try to answer it as soon as possible. And second thing, so regarding accent or anything, you words you don't understand, please make sure to mention in the Discord channel. So next thing, so let's start. Okay, so by introduction, so my name is Mohammad Irshad, and I'm currently working at Talos Cisco Singapore as a lead research engineer. So where we create detection for most of the APT vulnerabilities and the malwares. Previously, hello, can you hear me properly? Hello. Okay, so sorry, there was some issues related to the voice. I think the video on the YouTube is lagging behind. Okay, so okay, no lag now. That's good. That's good. Okay, awesome. So let me introduce myself. My name is Irshad Muhammad. Sorry if you're hearing it again and again. There was lagging in the video. And so for them, so currently working in Cisco, previously worked in FireEye. So most of my work have been focused on malware analysis, reverse engineering and detection. So these are a couple of my research blogs that you can go and look for if need. And you guys, if you have any questions, please forward it to Discord channel. Other than that, if you think that there's something I can help you with, guys, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter and LinkedIn. We will be sharing these slides right after this presentation ends at the Google Drive link that must have been shared with you. If it is not shared with you, we will provide it to you. And from there, you can reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. So let's move on. So many thanks to Muhammad Syed Hassan. He's a security engineer at Ebryx, and he will be helping you guys throughout the workshop. He will be monitoring the Discord channel. Please make sure if you don't understand anything or there is any accent issues, that the words that you don't understand, please make sure to mention it on the Discord. Okay, let's move. So from now, I will like to invite Muhammad Umair, who is the second instructor of this workshop, to introduce himself, and he will also be going through table of contents for this workshop. Over to you, Umair.
Can you stop sharing your screen? Okay. So 1 second. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum, guys. My name is Muhammad Umair, and I'm going to be your second instructor today for the malware analysis workshop. A little bit about me. So that's right there in the corner. That's both of your instructors, Irshad and yours truly. So I graduated from NUST, and right out of university, I started my job with Ebryx, working indirectly for the FireEye team. I work about 4 years with them, primarily in the Windows Internals research and development team. Then I moved on to FireEye Labs in Singapore. I worked for close to 3 years there, and my primary responsibilities were malware reverse engineering, APT hunting, detection engineering, so on and so forth. These days, I work for Kaspersky's global research and analysis team. So you might have heard of these guys. These are the guys who discovered Equation Group, worked on Stuxnet Flame. So Equation Group was the APT that's allegedly linked to NSA. So nice fellas to work with. So yeah. And if you want to, you can reach out to me on my Twitter handle. And like Irshad said, any issues that you have, please do try to raise them in the chat room, and Hassan should pass them on to us. Moving on, so I'll give you a brief overview of what you can expect in the workshop. So we're going to divide all of this content up in 2 days. First, Irshad is going to go over some of the fundamentals and also some of the advanced stuff. It's going to include basic static analysis, show you how to triage the malware, then go over some assembly stuff, show you how to recognize particular code constructs within assembly. He'll also go over some debuggers and show you how to use them. Then shellcode analysis, which is basically position independent code. And on, it's not exactly advanced, but somewhat scenario-based stuff. I'll try to go over some scenarios for you. I'll try to provide you enough information so that you don't get confused, and then I'll walk you through them. So one of those will be how exactly do you set up a network environment to interact with a Trojan or a backdoor, and how you intercept the traffic and how you proceed on exchanging commands with it. That's going to be our first topic. Then we'll also go through some binary unpacking, look at some common unpackers, look at some techniques. We'll also go through some binary patching, both static and dynamic patching. And finally, the last topic would be binary emulation and one of its use cases. At the end of it, depending on how much time we have left, we will also go through detection engineering and see how exactly you write YARA rules either for detection or for hunting, and similarly, some SNOT rules. So the way we've tried to structure this workshop is that we want to deliver to you some fundamentals, of course, but we don't want this to be a generic sort of workshop that you can get on other YouTube channels or videos or other exercises that are floating around. So we also wanted to give a hint of the normal, the usual problems that a malware analyst or a reverse engineer faces on a daily basis. So that's where the scenario-based exercises will come in. So with that, I'll transfer over to Irshad so he can start with his earlier topics.
Let me unmute myself. Thank you very much, Umair, for giving the contents, telling us the contents of the workshop. So let's start. So, okay, so there are some key points that I want to go through before we start the material. So this workshop is geared toward beginners. So if you have just started in the malware analysis, are just working, are trying to find a way how to properly propagate yourself in this career, so this workshop is for you. We will cover some of the advanced topics, but advanced topics are not the main focus of this workshop. So if you're already a seasoned malware researcher, you might learn some things, but most of things will be the basics for you. And secondly, we will provide hands-on labs and that you can go through, and we will go through at least 6 or 7 labs during this workshop if the time permits. And the main thing that I wanted this workshop to deliver is the direction that you can take in order to be a better malware analyst. So we will be providing reference to important sources throughout the workshop. Most importantly, sometimes I will provide sources on per slide basis. So my goal would be to give you the basics idea and touch some of the advanced topics. And after that, guide you towards a resource that gives you detailed both basics and the advanced in a very detailed manner. So yep, that's the second thing I want. So many of the guys attend the malware analysis workshop, and after that they think they know the malware analysis. Now, malware analysis is all about practice, practice, practice. So if you don't practice and you think you malware analysis, you know malware analysis, you're fooling yourself. Even guys that me and Umair that we are working, it took us 3 to 4 years to get at a very comfortable levels. So again, no practice, no learning. So please practice all of the workshops, and during the slides, I will also refer you to the links. So please do all of those workshops or the material also. So let's move on. So let's just start with what is the malware. So any piece of code that is designed to harm a programmable device is called a malware. So it can be any programmable device. If its purpose is to harm, steal, do something bad on that device, it will be called malware. Pretty generic term. There are many types of the malware: worms, bots, ransomware, and a lot of other types. And but one thing I just wanted to clarify: not every malware is a virus. So most of the time, the people who are not very familiar with the malware analysis, they think everything is a computer virus. Virus is just one type of the malware, and that basically latch itself to some already pre-existing file, something. So pre-existing file or some benign file, it's more like act like a leech, latch itself, and whenever that file is run, the malware will also execute. A couple of things that we will be going, what I'm going to do is, okay, one second. Okay, so if at the bottom of the screen, you will see links. So these are the basically links. So what are the types? So you can basically go to here. I have added a link for the different types of the malware. So you can go through them after the workshop. So these are pretty self-explanatory, but I highly recommend that. So this is the reason that, and second thing is like, if these are two links. So these are all discoverable to discuss the different types of the malware that we will be analyzing. So that's my goal towards providing you with the links. So please go through them, and they're all very basic. Let's move on to the next part. So, okay. So next thing. So you might be wondering, why should we learn the malware analysis, and what is the basically what's the reward? So it's a niche market. So there's a lot of job opportunities. I know the guys who were actively who get 3-4 interview offers every month, and the salaries are exceptionally high. So if you know, I have written some of the salaries range. You can guys, if you're from Pakistan, you guys can convert to these to Pakistan. They range anywhere from 6-7 lakh per month up to 15 to 20 lakh per month, depending on the region you are working in. So the very high salaries if you're good at malware analysis, and there's a very high demand. So, but there is a catch. Malware analysis, why there's so much high salaries, why there are so few candidates. Malware analysis is not easy to learn. It's an ever-changing field. The things that you will learn this year might be obsolete in 2 to 3 years. So you have to be in a continuous, you have to be learning continually. And it also requires fundamental knowledge of many of the basic fields, such as Windows assembly. So you will be mostly dealing with the low level code. It's require a lot of effort and concentration to work at that level. So these are the catch, but believe me, these are not hard to overcome. It just, there's an initial barrier. Once you overcome that, you will be cruising through the malware analysis. Okay, so the process of the malware analysis. So basically, there are two actual main stages of the malware analysis: basic analysis, static analysis, and the dynamic analysis. In the static analysis, if you don't run the malware, you try to analyze the malware without running it. In dynamic analysis, you run the malware and you try to observe the behavior of the malware. So these two steps are further divided into 4 steps: basic static analysis, so you start with the basic dynamic analysis. So we will go through each of these in detail later. So as here, you just use some tools to, you can use some basic tools to go through and find out what the malware basically does, what are the strings. Then you do basic dynamic analysis, you run the malware in the sandbox, you run on your machine. And so to observe what type of files it creates, does it Does it interfere with any registries? And then we move on to the advanced dynamic and the static analysis. So these two, advanced dynamic analysis and the advanced static analysis. So these two will be you will be doing them at the same time. So you in advanced static analysis, you open the file in the IDA Pro or any disassembler, depending on the type of the file you're analyzing. And in advanced dynamic analysis, you basically open the file in advanced in debugger, and you will be looking at the static analysis disassembler and executing the code on your debugger and kind of interlink. So we'll go into the detail later. So, okay, one second. Okay, awesome. So let's move on to next, PE file format. So here, this section will focus on the PE file format. So PE file format, any type, like whenever you go into the Windows, you must have seen .exe files. Most of the Windows files are .exe files. So they follow a specific format, and that format is called PE file format. It is used by both 32-bit and the 64-bit. And in reality, the file format is basically, it's just a data structure. Most likely, if you are familiar with C or C++ struct, so struct, it's basically a struct, a complex struct that encapsulates all of the information that is required by the loader to load the binary in the memory and execute it. So it was developed by Mark Zbyszko. So MZ, you will at the start of every PE file, you will see the MZ header that basically refer to the Mark Zbyszko. He's the guy. He was the architect, software architect at the Microsoft in the 90s. So let's move on to the basic structure. So on your right, you see the basic structure in a diagram. So on the top, we have the DOS MZ header. So DOS MZ header and DOS stub, these two are basically reminiscent of DOS era. So many of you guys might have worked on the DOS if you were kids in the 90s. So the DOS was basically if there's a program that runs if you try to run the executable .exe file in a DOS, it will show you output on the command line that this program cannot be run in the DOS mode. Okay, that's just for there. After that, the PE file header, this is where the real fun starts. So this is the actual binary start. The PE file header contains information about all of the PE files, are where most of the details, where it will be headed, and all of the important fields are present in the PE header. And then after that, there's a section table. So the most important data that loader will need, the actual data is present in the sections. Section 1, section 2, there can be as many sections as possible. And so they contains like up to usually 3 or 4 sections is quite common. And the section table is basically provides the metadata of all these sections. So it will have size details, it will have virtual sizes. So we'll go into the detail later. So one of the key things that I mentioned is so if you go there, so this is the Codebreaker magazine. So this is one of the most extensive reference for the PE files. So please refer to it if you have any questions, any confusions, please refer to it. If you don't understand, please feel free to reach out to me or reach out on Discord. Okay, so let's move on. So common sections in PE file. Okay, now we are going to name the common sections. So as you go here, there's sections. So, but there's a common section that are mostly present in PE file. Executable code. So every program needs code that needs to be executed. It will be present in the executable code section. So usually named .text or code, simply code, depending on the compiler. And the data section. So whenever you write a program, there are strings, there are integers, the hard-coded strings, hard-coded integers, that usually present in the data section, that goes into the data section. Resource section. So for example, there are some like icons, windows, some pictures, anything. And so anything that's the binary will need, and it's in a large size, will be stored in the resources section. So for the malwares, you need to keep an eye. Malware make extensive use of the resource section in order to hide their code. We will go through in the demo again for such a malware. And after that, the export data section and import data section. So these are named eData and iData, but these two are the one of the most important section when it comes to static analysis. Exports, we will go into these details, but just for like, let me describe in a simple sentence. Export basically, you must have seen when you write the code, the malloc functions or the write function, fopen, so these functions, all of these functions are usually export function. They are exported from a library. Import data section, so it contains information, all the functions that binary uses. The binary that is using those functions, those will be imports in that binary. Okay. So, and so import data section. So we will go debug information. So if you are trying to debug the malware, debug your program, so all of the information related to the debug will be present in .debug section. And so usually it contains file assembly line, assembly to code mapping, some other debugging related data. So it's not very important to us. So, but there is some things that are usually needed in the debug for the malware analysis. We'll go into those details later. Okay, now coming to the export data section. So it's relevant for DLLs. So DLL usually dynamically linked libraries. If you ever playing games, you might have seen some DLL errors, or if you go to C, Windows, and System32, you will see a lot of DLLs there. And so basically what those DLL library, they are like pre-configured, pre-written code that any program can use. Okay. And all of those, like the details or the metadata of all those, is stored in the export data section in the PE file. So, and exported sections are called by other modules, XC, DLL, etc. Okay. So executable usually they will call the functions from the DLLs, like if you need, for example, virtual alloc that allocates memory, kind of equivalent to malloc in Linux. So that's present in kernel 32.dll. If your program needs to allocate some memory, it will import that function from kernel 32.dll, which will be present in the export section of kernel 32.dll. I hope that's clear. So function can be exported by two ways, by name or by ordinal. So every DLL can export function by, so either they can provide the name or the ordinal. And so in case of ordinal, they just provide a 16-bit number. So every DLL have a ordinal assigned to each function that is being exported. So it can be a 60-bit number. We will go into details later. Okay. So this is basically a screenshot from the practical malware analysis. So why I included this directly from the snippet from the book, basically I wanted you to have a resource. If you're confused about something, you can just go to the table 1.1 in that book and read about it. There's a lot of details surrounding this, but since we will go to some basics. So the name of the book is written here. So still one of the best book. So kernel 32.dll, so this is a very common DLL that contains core functionality. So every program or every malware that runs on Windows will have access to kernel 32.dll. So it contains very basic functionality like memory, accessing hardware resources, and accessing files, read and write functions. Advanced API. So most of the Windows like uses services. Services are basically automated, they start automatically and usually run in the background. So if you see advanced API 32.dll, so it's using some important functionality, and usually service manager, registries, all of these things are the function related to these functionality are present in advanced API. So user interface component will be present in user 32.dll, manipulating graphics, and next move on to the anti-DLL. So this DLL, you won't be seeing much of it in the basic malwares, but when it comes to advanced malwares, you will be seeing a lot of this DLL. So this DLL act as an interface between user land and the kernel. So what it does, so it basically provides the interface for all of the functionality that is being implemented in the kernel. So if user need to some functionality that is directly implemented in the kernel, so he can use functions, import functions from this DLL and use. So usually in common programs, it's not present, but if the anti-DLL, you see some of the direct imports from anti-DLL, you should focus on them, you should analyze them. There might be some low-level functionality, there low-level working going on there. And the second thing, the last two DLLs, they are really, really important. Please always keep an eye on, or the WinSock DLL, or WS2, or the WinINA DLL. These are the networking DLLs. So whenever you see are being present in a malware, look for the networking functionality. And it most of the time, either one of the DLL is almost always present in a malware. Okay, let's move on. So here, so I will go through some of the basic functions that you will see a lot in the malware analysis. So these are all the functions that you usually used by the malwares to do something or basic functionality. So load library, it basically loads a DLL into the process. So most of the malware do dynamic loading of the DLLs that they want to hide from the static analysis. So, or maybe there might be any other purpose. So load library, if you see the load library, assume it will be loading DLL. Get proc address. So in Windows, but just having a function name is not sufficient. So what you need to do, you need the address to that function before you can call it. So get proc address, it does exactly that. It takes the name of the function or the ordinal, so that we discussed before, and base address of the DLL, and it will return you the actual address of the function. That after that you can call that. Virtual alloc, really, really important. You will see it being used a lot in the malware, packed malware. So it's virtual alloc is used the memory allocation. So that's what it's purpose. Create mutex, create mutual exclusions objects. Create mutex, basically whenever you see the create mutex, it basically process, what should I say, a way to sync up, to create a kind of a sync up between the process, to sync up the work. That's the original purpose of malwares. Often uses it to make sure only one instance of the malware is running. So if you see the create mutex, please pay any attention to its parameters. Usually the create mutex pro make a very good indicator for dynamic detection. So please pay attention. Malware is using its launching new process. Get host by name, again, is used to perform the DNS. So if you have taken a networking course in your university, you will know this. You will know this function. Get host by name is basically DNS lookup. Is debugger present? So I included this this API here. So most of the time, the malware, what they do, they try to detect if they're being debugged. So this is one of the most basic ways provided by the Windows. So if you see is debugger present, that's always an indication malware might be trying to check if it is being debugged. So, and it might be, and so malware uses a lot of protection mechanisms, and it's one of them. At the end, I have provided the Appendix A practical malware analysis. There's all of these functions. You can go to Appendix A and read about them. So what he has done, he has found some of the basic functions that they can be used, and that's most commonly used by the malwares. You can go there and read about them. Okay, now we come to the import section. So it contains information or the metadata about all of the function that will be used by the malware. Okay, so it's very important to analyze it. It gives you an idea of what the malware will do on the system. Okay, for example, if you see on the, so let me highlight it. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Full screen. Just give me a second. So if you see create file, write file, set file pointer, read file, close handle. So if you see these APIs are present in the import section of a malware, So this will give you an idea. This malware is going to interfere with the file system. So it might write file, it might read file, it might do that. And these are, if you see this type of WSS startup, get ADR info, socket, bind, accept, listen. So it's going to give you an idea this malware might do functional, might do networking. So this like, and load library and get proc address. If you see these two APIs in the import section, so this will give you an idea, okay, this malware might be doing dynamic loading or resolving the loading library at the runtime and calling the function at runtime. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm just trying to, okay. Okay, P file format demo. Okay, let's go through the demo and I show you some of the basic details. I think we can delay it after 2 slides. Just let me go through 2 more slides and then we'll do the P file demo. We can combine. Okay, obfuscated or packed code. So like about 90% of the times, malware that you will find in the field will be packed. So they will like packed malware is basically they write a wrapper program. So that basically compress the malware, compress all of the malware binary into a new program, and then it have a stub that runs that malware. So for example, this is our original executable. It will get packed. So whatever what packer will do, it will compress it, and then will be and then put it here in a new binary. And the wrapper program will load this packed executable and run it. So why malware author do that? So it's an easy way to defeat the static analysis or make it hard for the malware analyst to do the analysis. There are many common packers available, that commercial packers are available, and malware authors often write their own packers to make the job even more tough. So you will always have to be on the lookout for these packed malwares. And okay, so there are some indicators that also, if there are only 2 imports, if you see only 2 imports, load library and get proc address, so the malware is most likely packed. And in some cases, there will be very few imports. So usually a malware usually have 30 to 50, yeah, at least 20 to 30 imports, at least a normal malware. If you see less than that, less than 10, so most likely the malware is packed. Okay, so that's a common rule. Okay, Windows registry. I think the guys who work in forensics might have a pretty good idea of this, but just let me give you a basic overview. The Windows registry is basically a hierarchical database that stores low-level settings for the Windows operating system and the users. So it basically contains the configuration data for all the users, operating system. So the window registry is divided into hives, and these are some of the most important hives. So H class, key class, root, core window settings, and like it contains information about very core window setting. Like if you click on .txt file, which program will open it? Or if you open a .doc file, which program will open it? This type of information. Current user, it contains configuration for the current user, like what type of the desktop he's using, what is this background, okay, does he open his text file with Sublime Text, Notepad++, or something else, some things like this that are user specific. Local machine, so it basically contains information for the user software and the operating system. So it's basically a local machine is like, it contains all of the low-level settings for your hardware and the software, and mostly all of the operating system, like what are the services and things like it. So HKey user, so it can contain, for example, if your system have more than 1 users, so HKey users will contain information about all of those users. And just one thing I want to point out, that the current user, so this one, HK current user, is a symbolic link. Is a symbolic link to one of the registries in the HK user. Whoever user will be logging, this will point to that user from this. Current config, so it's just provide a shortcut to this proper registry hardware profiles that contains basically hardware configuration. So just provide a shortcut or easy way for the program to access this registry. And so that's the one, like one thing I have done is like, so all of these links are clickable. And what you can do, if you want to know more about these, please head over to these links and learn about them. I highly recommend you guys to go through this. In this workshop, we don't have time to cover all of these basic things, but please go through them. Okay. So how the malware abuses registry. So that's the one of the this is one of the very good question. So achieve persistence. So one of the key thing that malware does, they achieve persistent using registry. So this is the this is all of the labs or the malware training material that will go. This is the one of the most common registry that will pop up. What it does, if you can set its value to an executable, and whenever the proof system start, it will automatically run that executable. Other than that, so I go through there are a lot of other ways for malware to abuse the registry. So this contains all of the registry settings. I have in this link. You can go through this link and how the malware can achieve persistent through registry settings. Okay. Next. So there have been some cases where the malwares try to store configuration. So they store configuration in the malware, in the registry, sorry. And also a lot of services such as AV, especially the antivirus, firewall, they depend on settings stored in the registry. So what the malware does, they try to modify those settings and try to disable the AV. Our malware can also create services using those settings from the registry. And so hides code in registry. So there has been a case of the malware that tried to hide its code in the registry, like it completely stored it executable in the registry, and the wrapper program will every time access that registry, decode the code, decode the malware and run it. So you can go through the malware more details that here. So okay. So registries are like one of the most common MITRE attack techniques. So MITRE AT, what the MITRE, I'll just giving a brief introduction. MITRE is basically, they have a database of all the techniques that are used by the attackers during a compromise. So they have kind of systematically organized them and given them proper name and the code. So if you go here, so modify registry. So these are all of the APT groups and how they use APT groups are the malware and how they abuse the registry settings. Please go through this, and this will give you a pretty good, if you go through all of the material in this slide, it will give you a pretty good overview how the registries are being used by the malware. Okay, so now coming to the,
if I may stop you here. So we had a question on our Discord channel for you. So we discussed packed and obfuscated binaries before, right? So the question was, would you like to share your approach on how to deal with actually reverse obfuscated .NET binaries and auto IT binaries?
Okay, the obfuscated binaries and auto IT binaries. Okay, this is a question.
.NET binaries to be exact, actually.
.NET binaries. Okay, so this is a little advanced question. So so what I do is like what's the DN spy. So just let me I think just 5 minutes, 1 minute. So this is the Flare VM that you guys install. So if you go into .NET, so DN spy is the tool. So one other thing is like DN spy, you can basically open them in DN spy and analyze it from there, debug it. D for dot is another tool. So that basically de-obfuscates all of the obfuscated binary, .NET binaries. So we can go into because these are a little advanced topic for this workshop, but the person who is asking this question, please ask him to reach to me on the Twitter or LinkedIn, and I can share more details. So these are the two tools. Apart from that, a lot of manual analysis is also involved, and that we do for the .NET binaries. And these are all the tools that we usually use. For AutoIT binaries, so, okay, let me here, there must be an AutoIT. So you first decompile them, and usually after decompiling those binaries, you will receive, let me just search here, AutoIT extractor. So you load the binary here, AutoIT extractor, and then from there you extract the binary code, convert, decompile. From there, that code is usually obfuscated, and that requires like writing your own custom script to de-obfuscate that script, and from there you can analyze it. So please ask the person to reach me on Twitter. I will share some more links with him about how to analyze these binaries in detail, and I've also tried to share some videos with him. Okay, sure. Okay, let's move on. Okay, basic static analysis. So all of the things that I have discussed so far, they all come in the basic static. So these are the things that we will be looking for a malware in the static analysis: hash, file type, file metadata, compile type, signed, unsigned. So compile time is usually gives you a very good overview of whether the mouse or whether the when the malware was compiled in an actual program. But in malwares, don't rely too much on it. It might be what should I say? It might be faked and signed and signed. So most of the time you will see the malware signed. If signed by Microsoft, yeah, you don't need to analyze it. If it's signed properly, signed by Microsoft, it's most likely a legit binary. So if it is unsigned, okay, some of the malware are also signed, but their certificates either will be revoked. If it is signed by the revoked certificate, you should definitely analyze it. It's malware packed. We will go into detail later. So strings. So in the strings, we look for file names, network, registries, commands, and import exports, resource sections. So what it contains in the resource, any other anomaly that is present in the malware file. So that's the static analysis. We will discuss all of this in the demo. Okay, let's go to the demo. Okay, so okay. So what I will do is so for the lab analysis, so what I'm doing, I'm going to practical malware analysis. So all of these labs are present, must have been present on your machine already. And these are some of the, I think, best labs for the malware analysis to learn math. So we will be using some of these resources and some of the publicly available resources. For static analysis, I think this will suffice. Okay, so here are the labs that I will be going through. And so yeah, there, let's go into the Flare VM. These are the tools. So utilities, you go to utilities, and we will be using these tools for the static analysis. They contain, so what I do very first time, XZPE info. So you open the XZPE info and load the XZ init. So it will try to give you basic information. Okay, it was compiled using Microsoft C++ version and not packed, try only DBG or Hexray version 7. Okay, look, it's telling us this malware is packed or protected. Our lab 3 is protected. Self-write code, unknown. Okay, so it also guide you some, if it was unable to find the packer, it's asking you try some other program, but most likely this is a custom packer. If you see this message, most likely it's a custom packer. You can try these programs, but mostly in the case of the malware, this will be a custom packer. Let's go into, okay, it's telling us the UK's markers. Okay, and it's also telling us unpack this using from this tool. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, not pack, and this is a DLL. Okay, Microsoft Visual Studio not pack. Okay, now I move on to our next tool we will go into. So the next tool that we will be discussing is the hash calc. It's easy if you need to know the hash, that's all it does. But it can be pretty easy to go. I would always, whenever you're analyzing a malware, I would always recommend you to Google MD5, SHA-1, and SHA-256 at least. Someone might have already analyzed it, and you can collect the hashes from here. Now let's move on to our main tool. So PE Studio. So there are other tools, but I find this tool, to be honest, the most easy one for the beginners to learn. Okay, so let's load the DLL first. Just want to start with that. Okay, okay. So what it will do, it will give you some indicators, like pretty good. The file reference is tagged as blacklist, so kind of a give you indicator also, like what if it has already found and it is what it thinks might be malicious. It might try to give you some directions. So yeah, you can go here, but the main thing. So let's go to the first our PE file over. This is a DOS header. Okay, so this is the DOS header, details of the DOS header and DOS stub. file header. So these are DOS header and DOS stub. So usually we don't really bother with these unless we really have to. Usually make sure that this program cannot be run in the DOS mode, this string is present. So if this string is not present or there's something else is present that doesn't look like this, that might be a good indicator for you to watch out. And we can use that in the detection that will come later. So this is from here, the PE header, the PE header starts. So this is the 4550. This is the PE like its code, and it's telling you machine is the Intel. It's getting all the number of sections are 4. Compiler timestamp. It's telling us this program was compiled in December 2010. So might be true, might be false, but given if it's in the future, it might be false. If it's in the future, it's faked most likely, and if it's in the past, most likely it's correct. But don't rely on that in case it's a malware. And processor 32-bit true, dynamically telling you whether it's executable dynamic library or not. So it is a DLL, yes, it's telling you true, executable, okay. Debug stripped, it have debug information present, optional header. So these are basically different fields in that PE header. So entry point, this is one of the most important. So the entry point usually tells you from where the code starts versus the offset of the code. So it will be useful to you when unpacking the malware. Other than that, what are other subsystem is the second thing. It can be GUI or CUI. So it tells you basically in which subsystem the program will most likely run. So either in this case, you can just double click it in the Explorer because it's GUI. If you see CUI, then you need to run the program in command line. What else is there? Like list of the these are some advanced options, DEP. We don't need to go into these details that are not important for us. Okay. Directories. Okay, these are directories. Like this, basically every PE file have directories which we did not discuss in detail, but you can read more about them in the document that I linked to the slides. But for this workshop, I think we can ignore them. We don't need to go into these details. Okay, sections, one of the most important part. So what it tells you, so here we found out that in the file header, the number of sections are 4. Okay, now this is the section table that gives you metadata information after. So it tells you text section, R data section, data section, LO. These are pretty common sections. So if the sections names are not these, so if they are something garbage or some not ordinary names, so please reach out. So you need to, my malware might be packed, or it might be obfuscated. So the most important fields here are like raw address. Raw address is basically tells you where this section starts in the file. It tells you the offset. And raw size, so on disk file, the file that is actually present on the disk. So yep, so where it starts, what's the size of it, virtual address. This basically states when the malware will be, or the malware or the file will be loaded into the memory, then where this section will be present. So the loader will load this section at this address, the size of the section will be here. And because it's a text section, it also have information about the entry point. Okay, and these are the characteristics: writable, executable. Okay, this, if you see text section, usually should not be writable. So if you see the writables in front of .text section, so most likely that's a packed malware or obfuscated malware. Always keep an eye for that. So blacklisted, okay, this also answers other information. So data, so should always be writable. Relocation section, that deals with basically if basic relocation section, I would if you malware if you know the advanced concept DSLR, so that basically deals with that. It's every time the malware will run, the program will run, it will try to load it to the different address. These relocation will help in that. For our purpose, this workshop, our purpose, we can ignore them. Okay, so what are the libraries that basically imports? So libraries, it import ws2dll, kernel32.dll, msvcrt.dll. Imports. So we come to the imports. Okay. I told you this is one of the most important. This tells you what the malware does. Create mutex, open mutex. You should go there and see what are the parameters. That will make a very good indicator for dynamic detection. And you see 23, 115, 11, 4, 19. So these are the ordinals. What it is telling us, the malware did not import these functions by name, but rather than it imported these functions using ordinal number 23, 115, 11, 4, 19. So yeah, so most of the time, whenever the networking APIs, you see the networking APIs, basic networking API, they will be imported using ordinal. Malloc, sleep, create process. Okay. It tells us the create process. Here, one thing I'd like to mention, like I really like about P Studio is like it refers you to the MITRE attack technique. So you can just Google this attack code, and it will take you through how this process, how this API is being abused by other malwares. Close handle, adjust. Okay, these are string compare. Okay, that's good. Awesome. This I don't have any export strings. Oh yeah, this is the after imports. This is the second most important sections while doing the static analysis. So blacklist, what it does, it kind of tells you the blacklist. So it has some P Studio have built-in blacklisting feature. So whenever it sees some string that might be malicious, it will put it in the blacklist. But don't rely on it. Just use it as a guidance. So WS2.dll and create process. Why it is saying them blacklisted? Because first one is a networking, so you might reach out to network. Second one, create process, might create a new process. REST, okay, this is an API, IP. So keep an eye for that. They might be connected to this. Okay, and let's move down. Okay, what is this? So I would like to go through like these are this is important. So I don't know what it is, but we can go into the code, and in advanced static analysis, we basically relate to this. Close handle kernel 32.dll string compare. Okay, MSVCRT. Okay, it will use. Okay, it doesn't have that much strength. Okay. Now let's move on to our second binary. I will try to keep it. Okay. Just let me run it. Oh yeah. Okay. So you see, I will go quickly. So it finds some URL, executable location. Oh yeah, there's in the resource, I told you the malware abuses the resources. So it tells you that there is an executable present in the resource section. Okay, I will let you know how to extract it. Okay, attack, ratio, okay, utilities, privilege. Okay, URL pattern. Okay, let's go to the DOS header, DOS stub, file header. Number of sections are 4. And you see dynamic, it's not a DLL. So it's saying it's false. Sometimes, so this word is here, it's basically the extension that mentioned it's an exe, but in case not, there's no extension, so this flag will be really useful for you to whether it's a DLL or it's a executable. True. Optional header from here, you can see basically what's the entry point. Entry point and GUI subsystem is the GUI. Okay. We go into the sections. Okay, the section names are common.txt, R data, resources, and raw size, raw address. We can have already discussed these. Libraries, what are the libraries that imports? So it also tells you basically Windows NT, kernel 32.dll advanced API. So advanced Windows 32, MSVCRT, and imports. Let's go into the imports. That would be really awesome. So what I do is like usually blacklist. What I do, double click on the blacklist and see, okay, open process token, look privilege, adjust token privileges. So if you go into the practical malware analysis appendix A and read about them, so these are the privileges, these are the APIs that are mostly used by malwares to obtain some debug privileges or change the basically security level of the malware. So if you need to do some code injection or need to do some any task that require extra privileges, it will use these functions. Other than that, winexec, that is used to execute another window executable, create remote thread. used in code injection. Okay, so size of resource, find resource, load resource. Okay, this help is kind of extracting something from the resource and loading it. A write file. Okay, that's then okay. Load library, get proc address. Okay, it will do the dynamic linking. Oh, sorry, dynamic API resolution. Let's go to the strings. Okay, so all of these strings looks really interesting. Let's just go through the blacklisted one first. Okay, URL mon. So this is basically DLL name that is used in networking. So kind of, okay, enum process. Enum process, whenever the pro malware need to find out what are the processes running on the system. This is one of the API that malware can use. Let's move down. Okay, okay. I would like to Google like these two strings. So either if it is either it's a Windows executable, if it's not a native window executable, I want to know what the malware does with these two. So this is very important. So either malware drop itself there, or the malware might be accessing this executable. I don't know. I will need to Google it first. So why I'm telling you that, because don't afraid to be Google. Google is your friend when you're doing the static analysis. Okay, system32, this is the practical malware analysis. So most likely this is, okay, updated.exe. You see, most likely this will download this file. And winexec tell me it might execute this file. Okay. Resource section, win up, system again. So let's go down, library. Okay. Close handle. Okay. Okay, these are the format strings. So any of you guys who are familiar with the printf, so always pay close attention to the format strings if you find them in your malware. So in the advanced static analysis, they might be useful. So you can basically find out what the malware is trying to store in these. Rest, okay, rest is not anything. Resources, okay, it's executable. Okay, we see there's an executable in the resource section. Let's see how can we extract it. It's okay. So there's a tool present here. It's called Resource Hacker. Okay. Just load your executable in it. And here it is. So what I can do, right click, save bin resource. A little window will pop up. Let me save it to the desktop. So dot bin. I'm just giving it the dot bin extension. Okay. So I have extracted it. And what I can do is load this file in dot bin. Okay. Now I can basically do the static analysis on this. Okay, practical malware analysis, DOS header stub. Won't go into detail. Basic, okay, import URL mon DLL, imports URL download to file, and winexec. So you remember, and in the indicators you see this update.exe, a full URL to an executable, and in the import section you see URL download to a file. So most likely it's going to download that file using this API, and the winexec that is one that executes the Windows executable. So you already have a good idea. Okay, this malware will download this, might download this file, and then execute it. Okay, that's good. And strings. Okay, temp path. Okay, then these are the two strings that I might like to check further. Okay, same. So it might drop the file there, or it might be trying to modify. I still need to Google it. So Windows URL download to file, URL mon. Okay, same thing. That's my guess. Okay, awesome. One thing I want to do now is, so let's try and see some of the packed malware, how they look. So like where the utilities, XZP info. Okay, self-write code. So let's load this binary into PE Studio. Okay, good. Okay, the location of entry point is suspicious. So in packed malware, most of the time we will see the entry location of the entry point will be point to somewhere that is not present in the file on the disk. So that's a very good indicator the malware is packed. Okay, unknown location, status no. Okay, text is unusual. Windows program, okay, that is also unusual if you go to the DOS stuff. So it's not a full, usually this program cannot run in Windows, and this program cannot run in DOS mode. Usually that's the full string, but this one is interesting. So it's a anomaly. Okay. And other than that, what we see, okay, I think this function references type dynamic link library. It might be DLL. So let's see in the DOS header, file header. So no, dynamic link library flag is false. It's an executable. True. Sections. Okay. Name. You see, in the previous two binaries, the actual name was present, .data, .code, but here there are no names. That's also very suspicious and usually an indicator of packed malware. One thing, notice raw address. This size is very suspicious, like raw address size is 0. Another indicator of packed malware. And we need to find, there is no section that is marked executable. That is also interesting. At least in the proper binary, there will be at least one section that will be marked executable. Another good indicator of packed malware. And all of the sections are writable. In our previous binaries, we saw that the .text section, or the section that contains code, is not writable. So all of them are writable. Okay, another good sign of packed malware. Let's see, 2HC, 652 bytes. Another thing that I want you to, so here we don't have we don't know which one is the code or which one is the data section. So if in the, most likely I'm assuming this is the code section. Why? Because after doing a lot of malware analysis, from my experience, the code section usually starts from 40100. You will guys develop this type of instincts after a couple of years. So what I see is raw size is 0, but the virtual size, if you see, is 12,000 bytes. If in the code section you see this much huge difference, that's always an indication of packed malware. Okay, let's move on. What are the imports? Oh, you remember in the slides I told you if there are only 2 imports, load library and get proc address. This is another indicator of malware being packed. Strings, okay, there isn't much in the string. Just a couple of strings, that's it. So this was the packed malware. So the packer for this most likely is custom packer, and we cannot analyze this malware static. You cannot do the more static analysis unless we unpack this malware. Unpacking, we will go into detail. Umair will be doing a detailed analysis of the packed malwares. So for the static analysis, we can just write it's a packed malware. We can't do further analysis. So okay, so let's quickly go through another malware that I want to. I think which one was UPX. So let me just see the sections. Yeah, UPX. The location of the entry point is suspicious. Again, this is indicating packed malwares. Okay, and let me see what others. Signature UPX. The signature has been detected. Signature UPX. So okay, it will also tell you like source for UPX malware. So if you see the UPX, it's the most common packer. It's perfectly legit. It has legitimate uses, but it's mostly used by the malwares. And file header. So what we want to see here? No, it's executable, not DLL. Optional header. Okay, let's see. System. Here previously it was GUI. Here you see console. So it will run in the command line. And sections. Okay, UPX. Now you see most of the packers, what they do, they write the custom names of the UPX, custom names for the sections. So UPX0, UPX1, and the UPX2. And here, you see, again, the same thing. Raw size is 0 bytes, and it's 16,000 bytes. So huge difference between raw size and the virtual size. This means the malware is packed. And it's executable. writable and executable. So in a normal binary, a section that is executable will not be writable, but in a packed binary, it can be. So that's another good indicator. It have two sections that are both writable and executable. Okay, libraries. Okay, it imports Win9 Advanced API MSVCRT. Imports. Oh, yeah, you see, less than just 9 imports. Yeah, I told you, like normal malware usually have 20 to 30 imports, normal programs, or the normal malware which are not packed. So that's another good indicator. And virtual alloc and virtual protect and virtual free. So these three also have proper use, but if you see, there are very few imports are present, and the import that start with virtual are also present in them. So that's a very good indicator the malware is packed. So these are another indicator, because what it is, the virtual alloc will allocate the memory for the binary to be unpacked. And then once the binary unpacked into that memory, what the virtual protect will do, virtual protect will change the permission to make it runnable. So so this is the purpose of these two. And load library get already discussed is create service. So that's basically create service on the Windows system. We will go into details later. So internet open, okay, networking API, strings, let's go into the strings. Okay, so, okay. There are 7 blacklisted string. So one thing you need to be careful about, if the malware is packed, you need to be careful about the packed string, looking at the string. They might not give you much information, or they might try to mislead you. Most of the packer, what they do, they include a lot of, what should I say, like fake strings to divert your analysis. So look at the string with a grain of salt. Take all those strings with with a pinch of salt. Sorry. So okay, we import library. Okay, might there HTTP, might want to check these out, but that's okay. It's a packed malware. Nothing much. Okay, so this was the basic static analysis. Okay, there is another tool that I want to discuss with you guys. That's really good. So PBear, I will quickly go through that tool. Let me load this line. So it basically DOS header. So you go through the DOS header. What it does is basically also shows you the actual hex data, and it kind of highlights all the fields. So magic number. So what the P Studio is more beginner friendly. This is more advanced level tool. So it will actually write the actual name that are being used by the loader. So DOS stub. So if you go into the DOS stub, there is the DOS header, general, rich header, general. Okay. This is a DOS, this program cannot run. This is a smart DOS program, NT headers. So NT headers, rich headers. P file, optional header, file header, Intel machine. Okay, these are the basically, so it will tell you, okay, this is the signature, file header. So when you select this file, you need to select this file header. Okay, optional header. So this is little advanced use, but this actually like tell you when you go into the advanced analysis, this tool will be really happy to modify these values or check for any anomalies. So Windows GUI, it will also allow you to modify, but since you also need to know what you need to write there. So optional headers, yes, shows you these section headers. Okay, it also gives you a very good overview, and it also allows you to modify them. Okay, text sections, imports. So give you imports, so you can modify the imports if you like. You see, and R data, read-only data, resources. So it will tell you the resources. What are the resources? So offset, and you can modify the offset content. So yeah, pretty good. R data, resource section. Okay, that's like, just wanted to introduce this tool for advanced users if you need to modify some value in the P file and you want to do some advanced analysis. So yeah, the PBear is the tool to go for. Other tools, PE Detective. I won't go into detail. You can look at them. PE View, and there are some other tools. I think API Monitor. Okay, Cyber Chef. I think this pretty much it. CFF Explorer, yeah, another great tool. just one thing. I think I might be. This will also allow you to modify. So, but you should click here, characteristics, so you can modify the flags. So one of these like 32-bit machine world file is executable. So you see in the P Studio, we were checking the file is DLL file is there. So basically it's determined by this flag. So you can modify this flag using CF Explorer, but also virtual size. So you can modify these values, import directory, resource directory. It also provides some other tools, dependency walker, and might also provide you to resource editor. You can add more resources through it, quick disassembler. So just wanted to give you an introduction. Okay. No. Okay, that's all for this static analysis. I think it's gone a little longer than I wanted it to be. So now
we had a sorry to interrupt you again. So we had a question from someone in the audience that there are two tools, PEID basically and DIE, which is detect it easy. So which one of these do you prefer to detect packed samples? And I believe he has said that DIE, which is detected easy, does have updated samples or signatures basically to detect such samples. So which one do you prefer and why?
So, okay, so detected easy, the both are like detective easy and the PEID. So PEID is a pretty old tool. So it's also discontinued and signatures are not actively maintained. It does have signature, for example, if you go into details like FSG and Deluxe Microsoft CSL. So yeah, nothing found, sorry. So what was the Microsoft Visual Studio deep scan? Look, it's not able to tell. Look, it's a UPX packed binary, and if you go into detect it easy, so just wanted to show you a little discrepancies that might be present in different tools. What's lab? Lab 2. Okay, I need to go to PMA Labs. Clear. Okay, Packer. So you see nothing found, but here Packer is found. So that's basically PEID is an old tool, and I don't use it regularly. To be honest, I also don't use detect it easy, but it's a pretty good tool. And strings, it can extract all of the strings and calculate the entropy. So if you see a very high entropy, that means the malware is packed. And let me see what's the entropy for this. So basically it goes up to 7, like, so the 7 entropy is usually very high. The normal is 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. 5 is like the normal malware, normal samples. If you see 7, it might be packed. And other than that, what I think, yeah. So scan is complete, options, scan general appearance. So yeah. So for me, I usually personal view. So both of these tools are good. So I won't recommend you to use PEID due to the reason that I shown here. But what I use is the XZP info. So this is another same tool that have the same purpose. So I just find it pretty easy. And it's kind of also guide you where to go. So that's my preference. It's also have some like overlay entry point. What is the basically RIP? So RIP. So we're usually whenever, since we have started that, so what we can do, let me show you another functionality that's why I like the XZP info. So you remember we had to go to the resource hacker. Let me try RIP. Searching for file encoded with base 64. End of the file, XZP detected at offset. Okay, close. So if I drop it here, continue, and after that I upload the file here and RIP. So it's basically Ripper. It searches for XZ and encoded file, and you can basically extract it directly. So you see, this is a new file. So the file that I extracted through the resource hacker, the XZP info has a default way of doing that. It will search for. It will also search for some of the encoded files like base64 and also doc file, and then a CFF Explorer. You can directly open a lot of programs from it. Quick unpacker, extractor, TRID, run options first. I'm sorry. Okay, so these are the full quick unpacker, quick unpacker, shell needed. No. So yeah, so this is my favorite program to go for. But again, this is personal preferences. If you want to use the detect it easy, go for it. If you want to use the PEID, use it, but be aware that it might not detect some of the packers. Yeah, I hope that's clear.
All right, thank you for answering, Irshad. All right, so if anyone else has a question you might want to ask, do join us on our Discord server, and we're going to cater to your questions there.
So basically we finished this section. So if you have any question regarding any of the previous slide, this is the time to ask. So just going through again. Anyone? Okay, no. Okay. So I hope all of you guys have access to your lab documents. Do you guys have? So if you don't, either you can message on the YouTube or in the Discord, and we will provide you the link to download. So this is the time for you guys to go through the lab one. So you have 15 minutes to do that, and that should be more than enough. Okay, so the time at this present, my time on my screen is 9:44 p.m. So we will stop this around 9:01 or 9:02. Sorry, 10:01 or 10:02. Okay. If you face any problem during the workshop, during the lab, please post question to Discord or YouTube. So, and Hassan, we can ask me directly question. I will answer your question. Okay. Have a So if anybody asks any question, please let me know. So I was out for 5 to 6 minutes. question. Can you hear me?
Sorry, do you mind repeating your sentence?
I'm saying like if anybody asks any question, so
I'll relay them to you. No problem with that.
Okay, so awesome.
I will do. No problem.
So while everyone is preparing for their lab assignment and things like that, uh, we do have a lot of like just a little bit of time. So my question was like, I'm not someone who does the malware reverse engineering and all of that, but again, something like a beginner. What other books would you suggest for people who want to get into malware analysis? Um, Other than the book that was suggested in the beginning of the slide?
So the question is basically, if repeated, like it's not a malware reverser, but if he wants to start the malware analysis, so how can he enter? So basically, the main purpose of this workshop is exactly this. So if you go through all of those resources that we are sharing throughout the core lab, and you do all of the labs and do the readings required, so you will be at a very good position, to be honest. It might take you a couple of 1 or 2 months to go through all of the resources, but if you do that, I'm not sure you will be at least reach a medium level. And so in the malware and practical, I highly recommend you guys to basically use the practical malware analysis. So that book. So let me go to that book. Sorry. So this is still like the tools that uses some of them are obfuscated, but it's still a very good book for the core concepts. So especially you can skip the chapters based on all your DBG, and chapters that are solely based on tools, except the IDA Pro, you can skip it. But other than that, the chapter from 11 to I think 16 or 17, they go into the really detailed analysis, and you do all of its labs. It also provides solutions. And apart from that, we will also recommend some of the channels, YouTube channels, that you can basically go and watch. And so they share some of the cutting edge malware analysis techniques and analyze some of the cutting edge malwares. So yeah, so the answer to your questions is follow the material in this workshop.
Thank you so much, Irshad. That was pretty nice explanation to my question. And again, something, let's be very honest, being someone who hasn't even interacted with a malware and having this much of resources to learn, it's really, really, really nice to have such workshops. And again, I would suggest the viewers who are watching our stream and people who have just joined in, just this is something you can get more advantage of it as much as you can. And just shoot your questions at Discord, at YouTube, and anywhere you guys want to question. And B-side management teams or people who are volunteering here could answer your questions. So over to you, Irshad.
Thank you. Okay, guys, do the workshop. Sorry, lab. Let me know if I have any questions. I think there's a guy on the YouTube. He's unable to find Muhammad Umair, unable to find the lab link. Hassan, can you please share it?
Okay, so if you have concerns related to the lab links, we have actually shared it on our Discord channel. Again, please do join us on our Discord server, and I will personally answer your questions there related to the lab links only.
Five more minutes.
Okay, so Irshad, while people are trying to solve the exercise, there was a question from someone on Discord. So is there a possibility of having signed DLLs or executables as malware?
Yes. So they are actually pretty common. So what the malware, why the malware uses that? So basically it's one of the ways to avoid some basic detection. So some of the engines, if they see that the malware is signed, especially from some stolen Microsoft certificate, from stolen some reputable company certificate, even then that certificate is revoked. So that can basically defeat some of the basic static engines. So yeah, the answer to the question, yes, it's common. And to be honest, it's on the rise. So I can, if a person like self, you can just Google signed malware and you will see a lot of blogs from multiple reputable organizations.
So while you were answering this question about the certificates being stolen and then using the malware, so do you think the APTs that are actually targeting such corporate organization um, try to intrude in these organizations through many of the other ways, and then extracting their certificates and signing them so that their malware can be one of the undetectables. So is this something like I might sound a bit new, but if this is how it is, or the plans, or the movement, or the way APT interacts or APTs actually work is different. Irshad, I guess you're muted.
Sorry. So yeah, sorry. And so some of the most advanced APT groups on the planet, what they does, so they try to break into some of the most used software companies. For example, and there has been an example of Avast. So CC Cleaner is a software that I think you all would be aware of. So if you can see my screen, so in that happened in when. So basically, Avast network in 2019 or somewhere around that, so in 2017 and 2019, someone broke into the Avast, and basically they stole the certificate and they added their code into the Avast CC Cleaner, and that basically then got updated, and basically all of the organizations which were using CC Cleaner were vulnerable to this. So yes, it is done commonly, but usually if you see a legitimate certificate being used on a malware, that's a little rare because it requires compromising some big organization. Other than that, signed malwares. So this is from Trend Micro. This is the Bruchschneier. So it's cryptography guy. So yeah, so this other than this malware commonly use self-signed certificates. So that's pretty common. So yeah. Yep, and here does this go into the detail attackers are using. So malware with valid certificates. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, that was something very interesting. This was something I knew about stuff like that, but again, practically experiencing it while the examples are displayed above is something really fascinating.
Okay, so yes, it is really interesting. Even I think in latest in the AMD also, if I remember correctly, AMD drivers hack. So I don't know, some of the organization got hacked also. So I forgot the name. So yeah, it's a pretty common. And so I guess here you can just Google Avast network hack, Avast CC Cleaner. So that was one of it. Apart from that, these self-signed malwares, and with Bruchschneier, he goes into really good details. And yeah. Lab time is over. So, by the way, just like mentioned in the chat, how many people were able to answer like 70% of the questions? Just want to see like. Hassan, did you see any replies?
Not really, actually. I believe people are still trying to solve the challenges.
Okay. Okay, guys, I think we need to stop it here. So after when the workshop is finished, and we can go through those lab. If you were stuck, we can go through that lab again. And right now we need to move on to the next chapter, next topic. The time is short. So okay. So moving on to our next topic. So the next skill that we are going to be go through is like assembly language overview. So knowing the assembly language is a fundamental skill required for malware analysis, and all of the code that we'll be analyzing, most of the code that you will be analyzing from P files or the executable will be in assembly language. And so understand that how it works and how it interacts with the system is really important. So I will give you a brief overview of the assembly language, and we will try to cover some of the main instructions, but it's not possible for me to cover assembly language in a half an hour session because it's such pretty wide field. And so, but I will refer you to some trainings all available online, video trainings where you can go and learn, and also refer you to some books. So you can basically refer that. And this is learning assembly language is one of the hardest part of being a malware researcher. So if you feel stuck, don't get disheartened. So it's like almost every malware researcher who starts new will find it hard to master the assembly language. So let's start. So first of all, let's go some of the basic details of the 32-bit architecture. And so in 32-bit architecture, we have a couple of registers. So like they're called x86 registers. So EAX, EBX, ECX, EDX, and ESI. These are general purpose registers. So for like up to from EAX to EDX, you can access them using multiple way. If you use the AL, if AL is being used, it is only accessing the lower 8 bytes of the AX register. If AH is being used, it is only accessing the byte from like 8 to 15 of the lower double word or the lower 16 bytes. It's accessing the top 8 bytes. And as if you use the AX, it will access all of the bytes. So why do we have this type of addressing or this type of access? So it was basically to do the backward compatibility. Like Windows can still run 16-bit binaries, the DOS era binaries. So that's how it. So the DOS in DOS era, there was used to be only 16 bits. So this became 32-bit in 32-bit register. That's why we also call operating system like Windows 32-bit, because the register size is 32-bit. So it's same for EBX, ECX, DX. Okay, so now the coming to the ESI and EDI. So they don't have access mode as these registers, but what they do, they are usually used in string operations, array operations. Okay, and if you go to, we won't be discussing them here, but if you go read any of the training or go through any training that I will refer you guys to, so you will definitely find how these are used. ESP and EBP. Okay, these are the two most important registers. So basically every program that we run on the Windows have a stack. So EBP will donate the start of the bottom or from where the stack starts, and ESP will donate the top of the stack. So if you worked in data structures, so like you can do the push. So whenever you do the push, so ESP will point to the top element, and EBP will point to the bottom element. So in terms of data structures, if I explain it to you guys. So let's move on to our first instruction. One of the most common instruction is move instruction. So what it does, like it have a destination operand and a source operand. So like you can just assume an arrow going from 0x42 to ECX. So when this instruction will be executed, the ECX will be set to 0x42, or the 0x42 will be moved to ECX. This is a hexadecimal integer. And so one thing I like table 4.1 from practical malware analysis. So you can go to that page where the table 4.1 is present and read more about it if you don't understand. But I think it's pretty simple. What all it does, whatever is in the source operand, it will move it into the destination operand. So there are multiple ways you can use move instruction. So register to register if you want. So what it will do, it will copy the contents of EBX into the EAX. If there's a constant here or literal value, so 0x42 will copy that to EX. So if you see the brackets, that means it's basically accessing that the value inside the bracket will be the address. So it is accessing the value pointed by this address and copying that value into the EAX. So copies for value at location into the EAX. And so if there's a register inside inside the brackets, it means the register contains the value of the address. So when this instruction will be executed, wherever the EBX points, 4 bytes will be copied from there into the EAX. And you can also get you are also allowed to get a little creative. So EBX, so for example, if you need to access the array, EBX will point to the base, ESI, and multiplied the 4. So it will calculate this expression. So whatever the address it will get, it will access at that memory location and copy the 4 bytes of data from there. So it is mostly used in arrays, this type of addressing arrays or some continuous data. So usually EBX will point to the, in this case, EBX will point to the base, and ESI will be the index, and the 4 would be the size of the data. So for example, integer are usually 4 bytes. So to access the integer array, this type of addressing will be common. After that, we go into the arithmetic instructions to subtract. So what this does, it will subtract whatever the value is present in the EAX. It will subtract the value that's from the destination operand, from the source operand, and EAX minus 0x10, and will store the result into the EAX. Okay. So, for example, if EAX had 0x20, and then this instruction is executed, after that EAX will have 0x10. Okay. So add, similarly, it will add 2 values and store the result in EAX. The EBX will not be affected because it's the source. Only the destination register will be affected. So result will be stored in EAX. Increment. So in C, C++, you must know about plus operation. So that's kind of a assembly equivalent. So it will increment the EBX by 1. Minus decrement. So it will increment the decrement. It will decrease the value of the ECX by 1. Again, if you feel any confused, so this is chapter 4, practical malware analysis. You can read more about there. Okay, let's move on to some of the other instructions. And ZOR EAX. So ZOR is basically, it's a bitwise ZOR. In your gates and in your university, you must have read this operation ZOR. So what it will do the ZOR of source register with a destination register, and then store it into the result. It will store the result into the destination register. So ZOR have one specific property. If you ZOR something with itself, the result will always be 0. So instead of using MOV move EAX 0, so compiler will usually do the ZOR EAX. That will create the EAX register. It will set the EAX register value to 0. So why the compiler use this way? Because the size of this instruction is smaller than move EAX. So it gets the space optimization. So you will see this instruction a lot. Whenever you see this instruction, assume the register is being set to 0. And REX, this is basically the same operation. So EAX, it will OR the E value in the EAX with this. This hexadecimal number, and then store the result into the EAX. Okay, so if you see here, it will move the EAX into 1, and after that is shifting left So you must know the like double what's like double arrow symbol in C++ in C++. So that's basically implement exactly that. So to register, so the instruction is 0x28 because of the 010. So 2 bits left is, so 0xa is 1010. If ex is okay, sorry. Yeah, 10 binary is 52 bytes left. Okay, if for example, if we had 1010 in the ex register and we shift it left, when we shift it left, it will add 2 more zeros into the register. So now it will become 1010. This is old value, and 2 more 0 has been added because we shift left 2 times. Move BL with 0 and rotate. So in that case, whatever value at a 32 at 31st bit. So in terms of naming the bits, so naming the bits is same as the array naming. Array indexing. So 0 bit will be the first bit, and 31st bit will be the 31st will be the last bit. Total size of the register is 32, 0 being the first index, and 31 is the last index. So rotate, the similar operation that you must have learned in the university. So like when you rotate something, so whatever the value is present in the at the 31st byte, it will move to the 0 index. So rotate BBL 2 bits, these two result in BL if BL had been at 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. So BL is usually lower part of the 8 register. 8 bytes is just accessing the 8 bytes. 8 bits, my apologies. So 8 bits. And cause rotated 2 bits. Okay, you rotate it once, it got you rotate it once, this word becomes 1 1, and all of them are become zeros. Then you rotate it twice, this 0 will also be added, it will become 1 0 0. Okay, something like that. Okay, awesome. And so if you are confused, please go to the table 4.7 and read the text surrounding it, or ask a question on the Discord. But these are pretty basic operations. Okay, now we move to the flags. So every x86 processor have a flag register that basically can display the state of the register or the instruction that are being used. Sorry, that are the instruction that basically tell you the state of the previous instruction. So as a like this fill level, there's a lot of flags that are present in the, so for a malware analyst, there are only 3 flags that we are concerned about: 0 flag, carry flag, and the sign flag. 0 flag, whenever you see the instruction, the result of the instruction was 0. So for example, if the subtract EAX, you are subtracting EX with EX, so it will result EX with being 0. After this instruction, 0 flag will be set. So carry flag is set when the result is too big to fill into the destination register. For example, let's go with this example. So move AX. So we are moving 32 bytes. All of them are 1 into the EX register, and then we are adding 1 to it. So the result cannot fit. So result would be 33 bits. So it cannot fit. So that will set the carry flag. Sign flag, after executing the instruction, if the operation or the result is negative, for example, you do 2 minus 3, so the result is -1, or results MSB is 1, most significant bit. So most significant bit is the 31st bit. So if that is 1, so it will set the sign flag. Okay, so now we move on to the jump instructions. So jump instruction are basically used to implement if and else, for loops, and these things. So whenever you need to jump from one address to the another in the assembly language, you use the jump instruction. The basic format of all the jump instruction from there, before you will see compare. And test can also be present here, TEST. So compare instruction, it will compare the source and destination. What this does, it exactly subtracts source from destination, but it does not store the result in destination. It just sets the flag and throw away the result. And based on those flags, then this instruction, whatever the jump instruction, it will execute and go to the address that is present in front of it. Okay, so if you go into so there are basically three main jump instructions. Rest of them are just their variants. So equality comparison, if you want to see both of these two source or destination were equal, we use jump if equal, jump if zero. Okay, because if you subtract destination from source, you will get a zero result that will set the zero flag and it will become the equal. So the signed comparison. So also there are two comparisons for like if you while programming, you must have noticed like signed and unsigned numbers, signed int A, unsigned int A. So for both of them, there are different instructions are used. So jump if greater. So if destination is greater than the source, so it will jump. Jump if less than, if destination is less than the source, it will jump. Okay. And for these are the same jump if above, jump if below. So this is used in unsigned comparisons. For example, both the integers that you are trying to compare are unsigned. So then you will see these instructions. Okay. So jump if above, jump if below, the same thing. Rest of this is jump if not, jump. Just these are just variations of these instructions. You can just read them here. So just give you an example. For example, compare EAX to 10, jump if less than or equal to. This will check if EAX is less than or equal to 0x10, it will jump to this address. Okay, I hope this is clear. And if you have any questions up till now, please let me know. I know it's a little too much to take in, but if you have any question, please post on the Discord. Okay, moving on. Okay, so here we will see some of the x86 assembly language code snippets, and we'll try to see how they correspond with C language code or the actual code. So here, for example, x is an integer. So we move into the EAX. So EAX will be equal to x. Now then compare EAX with 0. So it's checking if the EAX is 0 or if the x value of x is 0. If it is jump if not equal. If EAX is not equal to 0, it will jump to end. So it will come here and start executing it. If it is equal to 0, it will move the EAX 1. It will set the EX to 1 and then come down. So then it will increment it and then setting the value of storing the value from EAX back into the X variable. So, and how it will look into the C language code. Okay. If X is equal to 0, so these two instructions. So basically represent this. If X is equal to 0, so what it does, it will move EX1. So X is equal to 1. Okay. Otherwise, it will don't execute. If it's not equal to 0, don't execute this block. It will simply increment. It will just increment. Okay. And then store it. So let's move on to next. Okay. So here we are setting EAX to 10 and XOR ECX. So I told you whenever you see this instruction, you need to, that's basically setting ECX to 0. And then call some function that does something, and then increment the ECX, and then compare the ECX with EAX. So in the first, ECX will have value 1 because we just incremented it, and then it's comparing it with the 10. So jump if less than. Yes, it is less than 10. So it will go label 1. Again, do something. Again, increment. So it will become 2. Whisk again compare. No, still less than. Again jump. You see, there's a loop going on here. So let's see how it look in C code. Here, for I is equal to 0, I is less than 16 plus I do something. So that's a capital. So 0x16, when you convert it into the decimal, it will be 16. Okay. And now we move on to the next code construct. So we move the EAX, set the EX to X, and then we're comparing if EAX is equal to 0x0A. If it is not equal, it will jump to else. It will increment EAX and then execute the code. For example, if it is equal to 10 or 0x0A, that will be 16. My apologies. So 0x0 is 16. If it is equal to 16 in decimal, so it will set the EX to 0 and then jump to end. So that's how it will look. So what will be? If EX 10 is set equal to 10, and just the condition ends. So that's what. Else, if it is not equal to 10, so here, if it is not equal to 10, it will take it here and it will increment. It will just increment it and then just go on. Okay. Up to now, if you have any questions, please post them in the Discord, because we are moving on to the another topic. Okay, main memory layout of program. So now we are going to basically discuss how the program will look in memory, because that is important for us to understand the next assembly instructions. So this is very basic overview of the how program look in the memory. So it has data, it has code, it has heap, it has stack. So stack is basically used for local variable to store the local data. Heap is used for whenever you do some like malloc, or you use the new keyword in the C++. All of that data is being allocated in heap. And so stack usually grow from, so it usually grows heap. So stack and heap, they grow. So stack will grow from here to here and heap will grow from here to here. Okay, and the function calls, all of the function calls that we have, each of the function call have their own stack frame, because if you know, each function can have its own local variables and data that it needs to do its functionality or do its work. So all of these are stored on the stack, and they are kind of look like this color stack. So current stack frame, if your function is present in this stack, in this function, stack will be at the top. The function who called that function, caller, so it will stack will be below it. And when you go one level down, so caller stack frame. Okay. This basically contains all of the variables, all of the data that are local to the function. So let's go into the more detailed overview of each stack. So what is contained? So we know all of the functions, or most of the function, need arguments. So the stack frame will start with the arguments. So 1, 2, so the first argument will be, the last argument will be at the bottom, and the first argument at the top. And then after that, return address. So whenever you call a function, it needs to store where it needs to return when the function is complete. So that address will be stored here. And old EBP, so EBP basically points to this value, old EBP, it will save the old EBP, it will point, and it will be used as a reference to access these variables. And after that, local variables, if function have local variables, they will be stored here, and ESP will point to the top, I told you. Okay, let's move on. Okay. So void my function int a, int b. For example, we have this function which have 3 local variables, a, b, c, and this sets these variables to 10, 5, and 2. Okay. So basically, this what it does. This is epilogue of function. So at every function, you will see push EBP and move ESP into EBP. This sets the stack frame. This create a new stack frame for the function. You will see in front of every, at start of almost all of the functions. So, and subtract ESP12. So when the function is called, the stack is created up till here. Now then we store the, create a new frame, EBP will point, when you store the first instruction is executed, and so it will be EBP. And from here, so now both EBP and ESP point to this. If your function have local variables, it will allocate space. How to allocate space? You simply subtract the number of bytes that you need from the ESP. It is subtracting 12. So we have 3 integers, A, B, C. And so each integer size is 4 bytes. 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. So we are subtracting 12 bytes from ESP. Okay. And now that is how you access the, so basically, so now we are using EBP to access these variables. So one thing you notice, if you go to the top, the address are decreasing. So if we need to access something above EBP, we need to use a minus sign. If we need to access something that is below EBP, we will use the plus sign. So since we are accessing the local variables and local variables are present above EBP, so we will use the minus sign. EBP minus 4, this is the first variable int. So 10, we are setting it to 10. Second variable, EBP minus 8, is the location of B, we are setting it to 5. And EBP minus 12, we are setting it. So you just add 4, 4, or the number of the size, the number of the bytes equal to the size of data that you are setting. So integer have 4 bytes, 4, 8, 12. Let's move on. Okay, how the function is called. So you knew how the local variables are stored. I told you like it will give our API. Now let's see how these variables are set. So for example, this is a assembly code that this is a function, my function 2. It takes 3 parameters, int x, int y, and int z. And someone calls this in this C code, my function 1052. So how that code will look. So one thing you need to notice, the parameters from the end will be pushed first. Okay, so we'll push 2, push 5, push 10. And then you call the function. How the stack will look when the push 2, so it will it will see 2 here, then push 5, will push 5, push 10. The call function. So what does the call function do? It basically takes the address of the next instruction immediately, like that instruction that follows it, and store it onto the stack, and then pass the control to this function. Okay, so that is how the arguments are passed. So we just looked at this pattern from argument n to our return address up till here. Okay, so 1 minute. So for this, I think I will need to do a little bit of. Okay, so now let's see how they, when they are put together, how they look. For example, we have a function like my function 3 that takes 3 integers, int x, int y, int z, and it also have 3 variables, local variable int a, int b, int c. Okay, how it will look in the memory. So that's the code of the push. This is the epilogue of the function. So it will present against in every. Let me see if I can basically zoom it. Oh, it's becoming smaller. Okay. At least we can do it. I think that's it. So same thing. Subtract ECX. So x is so integer x. So that is how this function will be called. So z. So that's what I wanted to do, is to kind of fill up the stack in front of z, then y, then x. And after that, when you call the next function, let's assume the address of the next instruction is copy here. So it will be pushed here. Okay. Now we call this function, the control has been transferred to this function. The call push the address of the next instruction and control is here. Push EBP. Here it will go the old EBP value. And ESP will, and ESP, so ESP will point here. So it will start, it will kind of set this, sorry, here. It was setting the EABP, old EBP first to, so that's what they are doing. Okay, and after that, we see ESP minus 12. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. ESP will now point here. Okay, you guys can, it's not visible, but let me see format option. Okay, just like for time being, okay, this will point here. So ESP will point here. Now we have space for our 3 variables. So that will be A, B, and C. So, okay, now let's see the location with respect to EBP. So our EBP is pointed here. And so X you add +4 and +8. So X is present at EBP +8. See why? So I told you, if you are trying to access anything below the EBP register, you use the plus sign. If you're trying to access anything above the EBP value, you use the minus sign. So then here, for 8, Y is present at 12. Okay. And now if you need to access Z, so EBP +16. If we need to access A, it will be EBP +4, and B EBP +8, and C EBP +12. Okay. And at the end of the restriction, so what you see here, these are the stack function epilogue. This is how the function usually terminates. Prologue. So it will basically destroy these two instructions will destroy the stack, and we set the EBP to whatever the value is, the return value. And so it will set the here, and then basically return what it will do. It return these 3 instructions will destroy this stack. Okay. And then since there's a present 12 is also present. So this is standard calling convention. So it will, this whole, after this function is executed, this instruction, these 3 instructions are executed. So your ESP will be pointed somewhere here below this. That's the old stack. Okay. I hope that is clear. If that's not clear, please ask questions on the Discord, because this is the most important part of the assembly language. Okay. 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 Now this is all that we will cover in assembly language. And so basically chapter 4, 5, and 6 of the assembly language, they deal with this. So they discuss these concepts in detail. Apart from that, this is a really good book. Oh, this side can't be raised. Okay. So you can just reverse engineering for weakness. Let's Google this. So let me just wanted to show you this book. Reverse engineering for beginners. So Goodreads. Okay, it's available in PDF, so you can download it in PDF. And it goes into great details how to, this is like a huge book, and it covers all of the assembly language in great detail, but it also covers the MIPS and ARM. So if you are basically concerned only about x86, so just stick to the x86 and ignore the rest. So, but use this book as a reference. So if you try to read it from end to end, start to end, it's pretty dry read. After that, this is a disassembly book. Apart from chapter 4, 5, and 6, I highly recommend you guys to go through this. So what it does is like, it gives you a pretty good idea, like x86 assembly. So assembler, compilers, and after this Windows executable platform, code patterns, so how the loop looks, variables. So some of the example in our book, if you go into my slides, the last couple of examples, so these are all, so if you see at the bottom, all of these examples were taken from this ebook. And so yeah, I highly recommend you to go through this, chapter 4, 5, and 6, and use this book as a reference. And if you are not into reading and you want to basically take a video course, so there are these 2 excellent courses available on assembly language x86. So these are one of the excellent resources to learn assembly language I have found. I myself learned from this security, open security x86. So when I was starting malware analysis back in 2015, so I went through this complete training. It's pretty small, it will take you 1 or 2 days max. And if you really want to go in more detail, you can also learn x86 64-bit. So that is also good. And this one, I don't know, currently it also have, I think, it also have videos now. Back then it did not have video. So that's good. So yeah. So that is all for the assembly language. So if you have any questions, please post them on the Discord. If you don't, we can start the next lab. No questions? I think. So it seems like you guys understood it all or understood nothing. Okay. Then let's start the lab. So go to the lab, open the lab document. Let me also open this on my machine. Yeah. So yes, there are 2 exercises. So I have done like a very simple, given you very simple exercises. So all you have to do, write a comment in front of each function, each instruction, what it does, stating, sorry, my apologies, instruction. Stating what it does. We discussed all of these instruction in our session. And after that, can you figure out what this code does? So you remember at the end of which we did if, else, for loops. And so can you convert assembly language code to C code? If you guys are unable to do this, don't feel bad. Assembly language is really hard to learn. But stick with me and go through the trainings and go through the practical malware analysis, and you will be able in just a couple of months, you will be reading assembly like it's just English language. So the time here is 10:41. And sure, yes, you guys have 15 minutes. So we will start at 10:56. Okay, I see a question on YouTube. Is ESP always lower than EBP? Yes. So like 99% of the times, yes. So ESP, EBP will always point to the start of the kind of somewhere like after the, it will always be present above return address. Okay. And it will point to that register, and ESPP will always be on the top. But 1% of the cases, so if you're analyzing some really advanced malwares, so they might not respect this basic structure at all. So, but that case is very rare and usually used in obfuscation or the packed code. But for normal malwares, unpacked code, so this is true. EBP will be below and ESPP will be at the top. Okay, there's one question from Abdul Sami. Do you really need programming knowledge to learn this thing? Yes, absolutely yes. So if you don't know programming, like I would recommend you guys to go through some C course So most likely C course, and learn from there all the basic code constructs, and then move to assembly language. Because if you move without knowing programming, this is going to confuse you a lot.
I think there are a lot of resources out there over the internet that can help people learn about C. What do you say about this?
Yeah, take any course, like take any online course, go to Udemy and take any online course. That would be great. So one thing, like I just want to say, the knowledge of C or C++ is essential for a malware analyst, because most of the code that you will be analyzing so it kind of directly correlates to C. Integer sizes, so C will teach you about the integer sizes, how the if else work, and so it directly corresponds to the C language, because that's the lowest level high level language, lowest level high level language, and it's really important to know that.
So there's a question on YouTube. Somebody is asking, we have to flip downside overview.
I'm sorry, we have to?
Flip our view, flip downside our view. I guess they're doing the lab course, probably.
We have to flip. Sorry, I don't.
I believe they're actually talking about the stack addresses, that they start at a higher address and then they go towards lower addresses. So we have to shift our view.
So
if you could.
So basically, usually that's why the way it is. So basically, all of the malware analysis references uses this use this way. So all of the malware analysis books, all of the blogs that you will read online have the stack in this way. So higher address will be at the bottom, and the lower address will be at the top. So all I am doing is following the same tradition. So you will get used to it after some time. I can understand it can be a little hard if you're a beginner, but you will need to train your mind to look at a dress like this.
So, Irshad, if people are not fans of actually reading, do you have any maybe video material courses or something? I see a lot of people asking that in the comments.
So yeah, so basically that's if you go into open security x86 training, so that's exactly for that. So this is a lower one. So if you go at the bottom, so they have videos, okay? So videos and trainings both. So here are the videos, day 1, day 2, up till day 6. So I myself found it boring to read the x86 from the books because it's really dry. And so I watched this video myself back in 2015 when I was starting as a malware analyst.
So I believe Open Security also has courses on static and dynamic analysis as well.
Yes, they do. And I didn't take them myself, but yeah, sure, go ahead and take them. Like they are. So I can't really comment on them because I haven't taken myself, but so other than that, if you are really interested in some online course, I think let me find one. So if someone is really, where is the training? If I can find it.
I think trainings I think trainings and workshops like the current one that is ongoing is something you get to know how to use the tools and things to get into malware analysis, right? And it's when you started off, you particularly mentioned about being practical or like utilizing it more and more the skills you have, so you get to know about malware reverse engineering. So it's more about doing the practices again and again rather taking courses and trainings. What do you say?
Yeah, that's my also like the take on it. So malware analysis is practice, practice, and practice. So if you just keep on going through the material, you will have a theoretical understanding. When someone hands you over the malware, believe me, you will be lost unless you do it yourself. So some of the people were asking me for like video course, like a really detailed one. It's a little old, but I think you can Google, what's the name of it? CINT 126 practical malware analysis. So yeah, if you need any help with the learning any material from the practical malware analysis book, this is a video course I would recommend you guys to go. Again, the purpose of this workshop is to give you a head start and provide you with enough resources to get started in the malware analysis field.
All right, so there was one last question. Would you like to explain Indianness? So I believe, I don't know if you have explained this before, or I believe
So
the user
yeah,
wants to learn more.
sure. So NDNS is basically how the data is stored on the in how the data is stored in the memory. So there are two types of NDNS, little NDNS and the big NDNS. So the little NDNS is usually, that means the first byte are stored or at the lower address, and as you go higher, the higher bytes are stored the higher. And in big NDNS, it's the opposite. So, but for our case, most of the malware that you will be analyzing are the window-based malware. So window use little endian convention. So just to show the other guys, so how the little endian look. Look, so this is a picture that explains it much better. So the lower bytes go to lower address and higher bytes go to the higher address. So the lower byte is 0D, it will go to the A, and then as you move higher, go to that. So this is little endian. Windows uses this. So all of the malware, Windows malware that you will be analyzing, they will be using little endian. And big endian, so some of the MIPS malware are ARM-based malware or the IoT-based malwares. They might use big endian, and old version of Mac OS malwares also use big endian. So this is basically architecture thing. So in that case, the higher bytes goes to a lower address. Okay. So 0A will go to the A plus 1B, and the lowest byte is like 0D, and it will go to the higher address. So this is something you just need to know about it and not worry too much. But yeah, knowing this will be useful when you will be directly modifying data in memory during your advanced dynamic analysis with a debugger.
Right. So we had one other question. Would you like to maybe shed some light on Linux assembly and MASM?
Okay, so all of the instruction that I discussed here, so they are valid for both Linux and Windows. So basically, this is the architecture instructions. x86 is an architecture. So both Windows and Linux use that. So there are some other than that, there are some differences, but those are usually, I would say, minor differences. Like one of the way is like, okay. So what I did is the C calling convention. I didn't really explain it and just left it for you guys to figure it out. So most of the Linux compiler uses the C calling convention. So for example, this stack needs to be all of the variables that are present that you pushed onto the stack, they need to be cleared before you can transfer the control, before a function or the caller can start executing its own code. So in C, in Linux, it will be all of the libraries that follow the Linux calling convention or the C calling convention. The caller will clear the stack. In Windows libraries, it will be cleared by the window. It will be cleared by the my function. So in Windows, you won't see. So in Windows, you won't see this instruction, Windows-based libraries. And so this is a minor differences, but other than that, if you know the x86 assembly language, that will be applicable to both Windows and Linux. Another thing that I think, if you're analyzing a malware that you might find in the assembly language, so the API calls will be different for Linux. So Windows that we saw in our static analysis, we saw some of the API call like virtual alloc, file read, file write. So these are the Windows specific API calls. Linux has its own like fopen, read, write, printf. It's also present on Linux, but also present on Windows, but Linux will use mostly these API calls. So is it clear?
Yes, thank you so much, Irshad, for the answer. There's another question from someone asking about, actually, it's about your own experience in terms of malware analysis. Let's put it this way: dynamic analysis, sandboxing. How do you prefer while analyzing a malware?
So, okay, so what I do, like in a typical manner, so whenever someone hand over me a piece of malware, so what I do is like I XZPE info, the tools that I showed you guys, I run malware in that, and then I see all the import strings if the malware is packed. And after that, what I usually do, I submit the malware to a sandbox, okay, and also open the malware in IDA Pro. So we will discuss the IDA Pro later in our workshop. So, and then kind of, okay, from IDA Pro, I go through the code and all of the strings that are accessed. So, and then I see the dynamic analysis from the sandbox and what it is doing, which instruction it is trying to access, and which file is trying to create. And from there, I take a hint, and then using those hints, I start my analysis in the IDA Pro. So once I have a good idea, both from the sandbox and from IDA Pro, like what this malware is doing, then I will pop that malware in a debugger and go to the code sections that seems essential to me, and then analyze it from there. So that is how usually I approach the malware analysis. So if you, one thing I think I can mention is here, if you, I think, let me exit it. So I didn't basically covered it in my, but there's a link here, and okay. So these are the 4 stages of malware analysis. So Lenny Zelstor is, in a sense, instructor. So yeah, this is pretty much my approach also looks like. So you can read more about, the link is present here. And you can read more about how he does the analysis. This is, I think, almost all of the experienced malware researchers uses this approach.
Fair enough, and thank you for the answer.
So the time is up. And so what any of you were able to complete the labs? Anyone? Hmm. Okay, there is, I think, one good question that I see from from the guy goes by kid cycling is assembly language is only applicable for executable and DLLs. Okay, so assembly language, all of the, even for Java, for .NET, they all have their intermediary language. So .NET is called IL something like IL language, I forgot the name. So, but .NET have its own assembly language type. Java has a bytecode, and a lot of other other binaries like or platform dependent binaries are that they use their own virtual machine. So they have their own assembly language or some intermediary language that we can call equivalent to assembly language. So what you can do is like you can learn the x86 language and the x64 language. After that, everything else, it would be really easy to learn. So all of the core concepts will be repeating in those languages. And in most of the cases, you won't even have to deal with those low-level language. For example, Java bytecode, there are very good decompilers available. For .NET, there are very good decompiler available. But even if for example, you're analyzing some advanced packer, and you have to deal with that assembly language, so you can just use a reference. That would be better. So just learn the x86 and x64. Rest of the stuff you can go with the flow. So there is another question, can Flare VM help to analyze PDF? So let me go to Flare VM. Technical malware analysis tools, sorry. Let's go here to Flare. So yeah. So these are the tools that you can use, and the PDF stream dumper is really good tool, and you can find some online tutorial for it. Even there are some very good YouTube tutorial or the video tutorial available for it. We won't go into detail in this workshop, but you're more than welcome to check this tool out. Okay. So I think, so we are gonna stop this lab here, and we're gonna move on to the next topic. And since we are short on time, okay. So here we go. Now we are going to the debugger overview. So what we have covered up till now, we covered basic static analysis, assembly language, and the next step that we will go through is the debugger overview. So the kind of is to introduce you to the debugger that is used for assembly language. So you will be spending, as a malware analyst, you will be spending a lot of time using the debuggers. So there are two famous debuggers. One is the OLEDBG and XDBG. So OLEDBG is the one that is discussed in the practical malware analysis book, but it's a pretty old debugger and for last couple of 6-7 years, it has not been updated. So it's an abandoned project. So most of the malware analysts have switched to XDBG. It's actively developed and actively maintained. So that's why we also going to give you an overview of this debugger and its functionality. If you are curious about OLEDBG, now you can watch some videos on YouTube or read some tutorial. That would be more than enough to get you started on that. And so for an debugger, that's how when you open the debugger and load a binary, this is how its interface look like. So these are all the registers. So let me open it so we can interact directly. So this is here. So there are 64-bit debuggers and 32-bit debugger right present on your Flare VM. It was already installed, and X32DBG. So let's open. So one thing that I would recommend you guys to do before analyzing a malware is go to options, preferences, and exceptions. And from here, 00 and FF. Please do this. So what this does, so debugger are basically used for finding errors in programs, or so basically whenever there is an exception, so debugger will catch it. So, but as a malware analyst, we don't need to catch those exceptions. So malwares often throw fake exceptions to derail the analyst. So what it will do, it will ignore all of the exceptions. So 000 to FF. Save it. And now we can upload a malware here. So let me just go to chapter 1. Chapter, I think let's go into file open, desktop. Okay, let's go like this. Okay. So let's go to the basic interface. So these are the registers, all of the registers that I told you guys about: EAX, EBX, ECX, EBP, ESP, ESI, and EDI. The flags. So we are mostly concerned about 0 flag, sign flag, and the carry flag. Rest you can just ignore. The rest of the registers, okay, it has a lot of information here, and most of this is relevant to floating point instructions. So we will not be covering those instructions in this lab. So, but if you want to know about what these registers do, you can just Google and know more about them. Okay, so this is the register interface. All of the registers are present here. So, and next thing, this is the CPU window. All of the assembly code will appear here. Okay. You see, and this is basically point to the current instruction that will be executed. EIP. So EIP is a register that points to the program. We call it a program counter. So it points to the current instruction that will be executed. Here is the stack. So if you see, again, like there was some question about should we invert our graphics because the higher address are at the top and the lower address are at the bottom. So no, why did not I do that? Because if you see, even in this tool, higher addresses are at the bottom and lower addresses are at the top. And if you go up, if you go bottom, the addresses are increasing. 8, so C, 8, 4. So all of this convention is being followed throughout the malware analysis, all of the malware analysis blogs and books. So you will get used to it after some time. So this shows you the memory. And all of this memory is in little endian. That's what you need to know. And this shows you, this is a context. It shows you detail about what are the, basically here we are using the ESI. It will show you the current value of the ESI, EBP -4. So we are trying to access the memory that is present at EBP -4. It will kind of show you what value is present. At present is 0. It shows the context here. So these are useful. So these are the function parameters. These are useful when you are stepping into a call. So you can basically look here and it will show you the function parameters. Other than that, breakpoints, all of the breakpoints will appear here. Memory map. So all of the DLLs that are being loaded, that are loaded by the loader directly will appear here. You see URL mon.dll. We saw them in static analysis. Okay. And their address sizes. What else is there to discuss? Okay, this is pretty. So now we go to the, what are the different, basically what are the different main shortcuts. So F7 and F8. So right now I'm pressing, so we are at the call. F7 and F8, this is basically a single step through the instruction, but they differ in one point. So if you press the F7, it will, and it's an instruction as a call, it will jump into the function. Okay. And if you press F8, it will simply execute all of the instruction in the function and jump to the next instruction. Okay. So here I pressed F7, so we entered this function. So let's set me a breakpoint because we don't want to analyze this function F2. So by pressing the F2, there will be a breakpoint here. And after that, I can press F9. When you press the F9, that means continue. So it will keep on executing the code until it hits some breakpoint. So now I'm pressing F9. Okay. So it's hit the breakpoint that we set with F2. And after that, we can either press F7 or F8. So let's press F8. And we are here. So one thing that, so F2, I remove the breakpoint. Okay. I want to show you one thing. Let's reload the file. So when you reload the file, it will stop at some loader code. And you will have to press one time F9 to go to the entry point. So this is when you see the entry point written right in front of the instruction, that's from where the malware code stopped. Okay. And so after that, you can do either F7, F8, F9. For example, let's assume we need to modify the register values. So what you do, you double click on them or you modify value, enter. And whatever the value, for example, I need to set it to. So either I can set in SK, signed value, unsigned value, expression, like I can set 1 + 1. Okay, so it will set it to 2. If I want to enter the bytes, I can set F, modify value. So FF, so it will set to FF, so it will convert it. It will show the ASCII, how it convert to ASCII value. For example, if I write 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45, and so that's basically the hexadecimal representation of A, B, C, D, F. So yeah, so that's how you can change the values of each register. And in the stack, you can similarly modify the stack values. Okay, then double click on it and it will show you this expression. And here you can enter your expression. For modifying the value in the memory, you need to select the memory you want to modify. For example, I want to modify this line. So I right click. Edit. Now I can modify. So either I can enter the value in hex, I can enter the value in ASCII. This is modified value. So you see, ASCII is appearing right here. This is the modified value. So you can present. And so there are multiple views. So for example, you can multiple views. You can add watch, struct. So these are little advanced, but if you wanna watch the value at some address, so you can add it here. So you just add the address, for example, EAX EBX, ECX, whatever you want to enter. You can also enter some address. For example, if what I do is like I want to watch this address, copy address, add, paste. So this I did the watch. It will watch for this address. Let me see if it's like expression edit. Yep. So that's if you want to watch a memory address. So this go there, and yep, this is pretty much. And so you mostly in the malware analysis, you want to be using the watch, but the option is available and you can use it. And for the by reading documentation, hide FPU, so it will hide all of the FPU register, floating point registers. And a couple of things I wanted to show you some important things. So let me go to the snapshot. Okay. So one of the VMware, so I recommended you guys to install the VMware. So the VirtualBox, they provide the snapshot functionality. So you can, whenever you're doing some analysis and you want to save the state, for example, you have been like done 20, 30% of the analysis, you want to save the state, just take a snapshot. So that's here. So for example, like I have already loaded a binary into it, and okay, just wait. And I'm pressing F9. I have already set the breakpoints. Okay. So now we are at the Internet Connect A. So that's a basically call somebody else. That's a call to that, and STD call. So these are the parameters that are being transferred to it. So if you Google Internet Connect A, so you will see like this one represents the whole server name that's connected. This is the port number. This is some flags. So one thing we can do is like, okay, if I want to modify this, so follow in dump. Yep, okay, we are in the dump. For example, you want to modify this value. Here, right click, edit. Let's do it drg.cc. See the values change. Now it will connect to a different server. So, and you can modify this like follow in stack. So all of these variable, like if you see all of these also present on the stack. So what it does, it makes it easy for you to see. So here's the stack. I need to modify the port number. So this is the parameter. I can basically specify, for example, that's 100. I want it connected to the port number 256. I want to 443. That's HTTPS, or maybe 22. So that is how you can modify the parameters that are being passed to a function and control its behavior. Okay, that's, I think, this is pretty much it. And if you have any question about the interface, about how to use different functions in a debugger, please let us know in the Discord channel. Okay, there is basically a question from Can we rely on dynamic malware analysis and sandboxes, please? Okay, I think it's already done. Okay, the x86 debug. So just to answer, like you need to use all, like dynamic, static, both of them. So, and also you will need advanced static and advanced dynamic analysis. So you can't rely on one. So for example, if the malware is packed, so your static analysis will fail. So then you will have to rely on dynamic analysis. So if malware is, or like in one of our binary, one of the binary that we saw, it has another binary in the resource section. Okay, and that will only be executed during the dynamic analysis. And you won't be able to know malware had that binary present if you didn't do the static analysis. So yep, the static analysis can be helpful. Same goes for the dynamic analysis. The dynamic analysis and the sandbox analysis gives you an overview, a very brief overview, but there are many malware that can escape, that basically knows the way how to escape the sandbox. Let me, in my slides, if I go to my slides, 1 second, let me exit. So in my introduction, I showed you one of my blogs. Increased use of Delphi packer to avoid malware classification. Okay, a deep dive into rigging. So this is a blog, that is a malware that goes out of its way to detect the sandbox. So you can read more about it, how it does, but it's a little advanced. So malware can also bypass the sandbox. In that case, only the advanced dynamic analysis will be useful that you do with the debugger. So the question to your answer, you will need all of them. If you try to rely on one or two or maybe three of them, you will miss out some of the many important malwares. So the next question is, okay, the XDB bus registers are showing 32-bit. Is that because 30-bit exe? Yes. So if you go here, under there are 32-bit and a 64-bit. If you need to analyze a 32-bit binary, you will use the one where on its head it's 32 is written. Magnifier. So you see, I just used a magnifier. So 32 and the 64-bit is 64-bit. And both of them have different registers. Okay. And okay, next question is, how can this memory analysis be helpful to catch malicious behavior? So for example, many times the malware will, the question is, how can the memory analysis be helpful to catch malicious behavior? So many malwares, mostly the packers, what they do, they unpack the binary in the memory. You see, let me see, like if I go on the top, I see, follow in. So at that time, when you see like some like MZ file header, let me just try to see if I can. The lab 1.4 had it. So log notes, memory map. Is it? Okay, 70C binary following them. Yes. So whenever malware will unpack binary, you will see something like 4D, 5A. So that is not the, this is where the unpacked binary starts. And then malware will try to load this binary into the memory. So that is where this pane or the memory analysis will be really, really helpful. Apart from that, I also told you, like, if you need to modify, for example, if you need to modify the function parameters or some strings in the memory, so that's where the memory analysis will be helpful. So I hope I have answered your question. And so when and how to use the tracing functionality in x64 DBG? Okay, a little advanced question. So I will just answer it as a basic because I won't go into the details. So tracing is basically when you log all of the instructions that are being executed by the malware. So for example, when your malware is, so I think Umair will be able to demonstrate to you guys. So tracing this question, Umair will be able to demonstrate. So how can tracing be used? Well, because he will be doing one of the string decryption. So that's where the tracing can be really useful. Anytime when you need to know what the instructions are doing, and if they are accessing some memory, some modifying some data, and you want to capture those instructions in a log, so that's when the tracing will be helpful. It's mostly used in terms of the exploits, like where you see where the exception is triggered and the malware switches to, the exploit switches to a stack address or address present in the heap. So that's when, okay, this instruction will be executed, and then it will go either into the stack or into heap. And so that's where the tracing is really useful. Other than that, we will include a link. I have included a link in the slide that will be really helpful for you guys. So here is the link. Oh. Okay, I will send you guys the link to excellent intro. Oh, yeah, this one. So if you guys like all of the, we just discussed some of the basic features and that you will be using in every day. But if you need to go through have a good understanding of all the features that are usually present in the XDBG, and you might need them with analyzing some of the advanced malwares. So you can go to this link and read about it. I think it might also have tracing. It's a pretty detailed blog. So for the rest of the guys who are just beginners, I don't think so you need to bother about tracing for at least these labs. But if you're still confused, we can allocate some time after the lab, after this this session, and then move on. We can discuss that. So anyone else? Any more questions? Hassan, is there any question in Discord?
Right, so I had one question. How do you analyze, actually this is from someone else, but how do you analyze malware which is utilizing lolbins?
Which they're utilizing?
Living off the land binaries, right? For example, maybe it's a malicious DLL which uses run DLL 32. So I believe someone answered him, but that we have to attach the binary to the executable and then we can use it. So I was hoping you could maybe answer that a bit much
okay,
better.
sure.
A bit better, sorry.
So no issue regarding that. So I think there are a couple of ways. So for there, like, okay, do you really want to exit? Yes. Let's analyze a DLL. So basically, local Windows debugger. I think we have a DLL. Practical malware analysis, Flare, utilities. Sorry, labs, CMA labs. So is it going to chapter 1? Okay, this is the binary. So this is a DLL. Okay. The first thing you can do is like use the DLL main, CMD. Run DLL32.exe and comma DLL main. So we just executed DLL main is a function that basically almost every DLL has, and it's from where the code will start. It's like you can say the main function of C++ program. So you can do this. This is basically for basic analysis. So if you just need to run the DLL and see what it does, you can do this DLL main. So missing entry, okay. And so other than that, what we can do is upload it. Okay, a little getting ahead of ourselves. Second thing, what we can do, OnlyDBG, let me open the debugger. So OnlyDBG have a very good interface for that. File, open, desktop. So this is the other like older malware. So it's a DLL, Windows can execute DLL directly, extract and launch, load DLL, yes. So it has a built-in DLL loader. Okay, let it load. Okay, so close. You will see XP feelings. So this is the module entry point. This is from the HDLL code start. So you can do the debugging from here. But if you don't like it, I think, yes. So the second way is to use XDBG. Yes. And file, open. And since we need to press F9, so okay, it's start now. From here, the DLL code start. So one of the main thing DLL has is there's another way. So what I did is like in the IDA Pro video, I have attached a video link in the IDA Pro section. So we will discuss that, how to analyze the DLL using IDA Pro. You can also do it with the IDA Pro. And here, if for example, some DLL have some functions, so you can just write its name, for example, some function, and provide the parameter after space. So these are the multiple ways to analyze a DLL or run the DLL directly. One more functionality that the XDBG don't have, but only DBG have. Okay, debug, call DLL export. So this one don't have any DLL exports, but what it can actually do is you can basically load a DLL and provide the parameters that it needs. So you can set arguments, no arguments, or the parameter call reason, and set different arguments, like argument 4, 5, 6, 7. Set the register before the call is executed, and you can go through the different calls. Let me see if I can load a DLL which have some Flare, and I think it's in the system 32 tools, Windows system 32. Okay, it's not present here. He might not have access. Yep, here it is. Okay. So what I'm doing is like analyzing a basic, for example, let's assume at the moment this is a malicious DLL that you're analyzing. So it's a kernel DLL, 32 DLL. Yes. Oh no, it's not a 32-bit. I'm on a 64-bit machine. Okay, I think let's delay it until the lab. I will find a 32-bit DLL and I can answer your question after that and show you some extra tricks.
Absolutely, that's perfectly fine.
So does anybody have any questions? Any more questions? Debugging a DLL certain export function. Yep, Sadia Bashir. Yep. So I just explained it. So just to give you one more time, and I think I have a DLL lab debuggers. Yep, this one have. I'm not sure of it. So if you need to debug and export, I would recommend you to use only DBG2. That's for as a beginner. But once you have, once you know how the export works, then you can switch to the 32XDBG, because XDBG doesn't provide a way to directly debug and export. So, but only DBG does. So let's open here this DLL and file open. Okay. So after that, you go here, call DLL export. Okay. So it has 3 exports. So for example, if you want to debug install, okay, and one thing you want to do is go there and set a breakpoint. Otherwise, it will directly execute and will not stop there. So you press Control G. So that is how you basically go to some code. Control G 100004706. Okay. This is from where the start. We just press F2, set a breakpoint. And after that, once you have set up all the function parameters, arguments that you want to pass to the this function. So how will you know about the parameters? You will have to statically find them. So that's where the advanced static analysis will come into play. Call export. Come on. Okay. You got it. So click the call export and it will stop at your breakpoint. You see, and then after that you can do F8. Let me close this. F8, F9, or whatever F7 you can do. So that's how you debug a DLL. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, so I would ask you guys to go to the lab manual, lab number 3. So debugger overview. So it should take you like 15 to 20 minutes and basically ask you to do some of the basic stuff. The time here is 11:39. So it will be, I will stop the time at 11:45, 11:55 or 12. Yep. This is the last lab from my side. And after that, I will hand it over to Umair. Okay. let's do the lab. If you face any issues, please stay after the workshop is like this topics are finished, and we can discuss the labs. Other than that, if you don't want to wait, we will also be releasing video solution to the labs later, a couple of days after the workshop. So you guys can go through them and see how to do these labs. Okay, guys, so we are gonna call it a day today. So if you guys want to stay and discuss some of the lab questions and or any other question, extra question that you guys have, any question related to malware analysis. So me and Umair will be here for next half an hour, over half an hour to answer the question. Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, you can work on lab at your own pace after the lab. And you can, so tomorrow there will also be another session where we will go through a shell code analysis. Umair will show you some of the advanced APT attacks and how to intercept their traffic. And finally, if we get enough time, we will go through how to detect the malware. Is there any question on Discord?
So I'm not sure if you've answered this question from YouTube already, but can you maybe explain the process of debugging a DLL's export function?
Yes, I answered this question already. So
You've discussed it, right?
Yes, I'll use already BG2.
Awesome.
And since if the person is still listening, there is a way to do it from XDBG also. So, but it's a little more involved because XDBG doesn't by default provide a functionality to debug a DLL. So what you do, you F9, and after that you execute the entry point, whatever is like, so execute until you return from this. So until the return address is executed. So you execute the fully DLL main, and after that you go to the function. For example, is my screen visible? I don't think so.
No, the screen sharing.
Oh, sorry for that, screen share. So So I will explain the process a little. So debugging a DLL using XDBG, but if you're a beginner, I will highly recommend you guys to use only DBG. I myself still use only DBG whenever I need to debug a DLL export, or I use the IDA Pro. XDBG is a little bit more involved and the margin of error is very high. So you load a DLL from recent file into the, but if you still want to do it, here is a basic way I can explain it. So F1, so you entry point, you execute it completely until the return. int 3, jump 3, int from, okay. Let's terminate. Returns. So we have executed the DLL main routine. So this code have to be executed before you can debug any DLL export. Then what you do, you find the DLL export address from IDA Pro or some other analysis tool. So let me load this binary into IDA Pro. So here are the exports, install, option, view, general, line prefix. And then you copy the address. For example, I want to debug this install. So I go double click on install, copy this address. And then Control G, type this address. And F2, okay. And then right click here, set new region. So it will set the EIP to point here. Okay. And then you set all of the parameters and try to execute it, but don't go this way. Use only DBG or IDA Pro.